When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Visible puts the ultimate wireless hack in the palm of your hand. With unlimited 5G wireless data and hotspot designed to keep you connected, powered by Verizon's 5G network. And no contract holding you back. Plans start at $25 a month, or get the premium Visible Plus Pro plan and save $10 on your first month when you use promo code HACK. Make the switch at Visible.com. Terms apply. See Visible.com for details.
Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hi, welcome back to Unbound Season 4, Invisible Daughter. I'm Beth Curry. Last episode, we talked about the economic cost of invisible labor and the erosion of identity that kind of happens over years of prioritizing everyone else. Today, I'm going to talk about what that depletion looks like and feels like in real time and what it does to the people closest to you. Burnout, right? Relationships living in the shadow of it. So here's a scene I suspect will feel familiar. Say you had plans to do something for yourself today, maybe a workout, a walk, an errand that was only for you. And then the calls came and the texts came and the needs arrived as they always do. And so you handled them. And now you're sitting somewhere, maybe your car or your kitchen, quiet corner of the house, rocking and sobbing. Just the window of time for yourself closed, feeling something you can't quite name. You're not really angry, maybe not sad. Just kind of empty, running on these fumes you're not even sure belong to you. This is invisible burnout, okay? It's different from the burnout that gets recognized in professional contexts. Professional burnout is visible. It shows up in performance metrics, right? It has a name and, there's resources and accommodations and conversations about it. But invisible burnout hides. It hides because the person who's going through it has kind of learned to function while depleted. Because stopping obviously would mean letting people down, right? Because the role has no sick days and the family system has no backup plan for when the daughter is not okay. So she keeps going. And from the outside, she looks fine and capable and reliable and always there. And from the inside, she's burning down. The symptoms of this are real and they're really serious. So there's physical depletion disguised as busyness, right? Chronic fatigue, disrupted sleep, stress-related health issues that kind of get minimized while she manages everyone else's medical needs, of course. The emotional exhaustion is masked as sensitivity. So crying privately, maybe while kind of maintaining a cheerful availability for everyone. Emotional numbness alternating with overwhelm. Resentment about demands coupled with guilt about feeling resentful, of course. There's a mental overload also that's presented kind of as competence. So there's difficulty concentrating, maybe anxiety about forgetting something important for somebody else, maybe decision fatigue for managing complex systems for so many people. And something I want to name gently but directly, some daughters find themselves managing invisible burnout with substances. Okay, like alcohol, things that take the edge off, an edge that never goes away. And it's not because they're weak, but because they're kind of running on an unsustainable system with like no outlet and no acknowledged place to put the weight, right? We talked about Angela in episode 5, my mother-in-law. She was a devoted daughter and she spent years as her mom's caregiver. And her development of alcohol dependency was not a character flaw or a separate problem. It was invisible burnout, finding the only exit it could locate. By the time the family could see it clearly, the damage was already done, right? One of the things that keeps invisible burnout invisible is the profound double standard in how society responds to professional exhaustion versus caregiving exhaustion. When someone burns out in a workplace, it gets recognized. There's a language for it, and there's protocols, and there's at least cultural acknowledgement that the demands were unreasonable. But when a daughter burns out from family caregiving, the responses tend to sound like, oh, that's just part of life. At least you're doing it out of love. Lots of people are dealing with the same thing. You should be grateful you're able to be there for them. Lame, because the implicit message is your exhaustion isn't a system problem. It's a personal failure to manage well enough. And this kind of keeps daughters isolated in their burnout. It doesn't get named as burnout. It gets framed as struggle or weakness or ingratitude. And so daughters continue to carry it alone and maintain the appearance of capability while the inside continues to kind of hollow out, right? One of the most frustrating things about trying to recover from invisible burnout is the first attempt to step back almost always makes things worse before they get better. When daughters start to pull back from the roles that are depleting them, the family system often responds with escalation, right? Because people don't like change. They don't want to be made uncomfortable because something is changing. And maybe a crisis would increase, a request might intensify, or emotional pressure might mount. And the daughter, exhausted and guilt-soaked, looks at the chaos and thinks, see, they really do need me. I can't step back. But what's actually happening? The family system is intensifying before it adapts. It's asserting the old pattern before learning a new one. Things fall apart in the short term, not because you're irreplaceable, but because the system was never built to function without you, and it's being forced to figure that shit out for the first time. The chaos is not evidence that you can't step back. It's evidence of how thoroughly you were doing everything. So maintain the boundary, because the system adapts. It always does. When it has no other choice, especially. I say this a lot. What you allow is what will continue. So maintain the boundary. See what happens. Now, I want to talk about what invisible burnout does to the relationships closest to you. You cannot pour from an empty vessel, okay? The people who are supposed to receive the most of you, like your spouse or your closest friends, they're often receiving what's left after everything else has taken its share. And what's left is sometimes very little. Invisible daughters bring extraordinary qualities to their marriages, empathy and emotional intelligence and capacity for loyalty and care. And these are real, and they're part of why, the people who love them fell in love with them. But those qualities are being accessed constantly by family systems that established their claim first. So by the time a daughter comes home to her marriage, the empathy has been deployed elsewhere, and the emotional intelligence has been spent on other people's feelings, and the anticipatory care has been running all day for other people's needs. And then the spouse gets the remainder. And this is one of the most painful dynamics of the invisible daughter experience, not because anyone is doing anything wrong exactly, but because the math doesn't work. You can't give everything to multiple systems and have everything left for the ones who matter the most. So I'm going to describe what this might look like day to day. There's a divided presence. You are physically in the room, but you are not entirely there. Part of you is tracking a family situation or processing an earlier call or anticipating the next need. And your spouse can feel the division even when they can't identify it as that, right? There's the emotional remainder. You have given your empathy and your patience and your regulatory capacity to other people's emotional needs all day long. And what remains for your marriage is functional, present, but not the full version of you. There's also interrupted intimacy. So dinners are paused for crisis calls, and evenings are rerouted to family needs, and plans might be restructured around someone else's emergency. And over time, these interruptions kind of accumulate into a pattern where the marriage begins to feel like it lives in the margins of everyone else's needs. There's also the communication gap. You've gotten pretty good at managing other people's emotions. You've often lost practice expressing your own. You may find that your most intimate relationship is the one where you are least able to name what you actually need, because naming needs was never something the invisible daughter role required you to practice. I talked to someone called Nina, and she describes a moment of recognition that came several years into her marriage. She says, my husband realized one night when he didn't actually know what I was struggling with. He knew everything happening with my family. He knew every detail of every situation, but he didn't know how I was doing inside of any of it because I never told him. I thought I was keeping him updated. I didn't realize that updates about other people weren't the same as knowing me. That distinction between information about others and genuine access to your inner life is one of the most significant costs of the invisible daughter's experience in marriage. When daughters begin to recover, when they start setting boundaries and kind of redistributing the labor and protecting their own capacity, marriages often transform significantly. The emotional availability that was being consumed elsewhere becomes available in the marriage, and the presence that was divided becomes more whole, and the conversation shifts from managing other people's situations to actually connecting with each other. Nina said, "Our marriage is completely different now. I'm actually present when we're together. My husband doesn't feel like he's getting the leftover version of me after everyone else has taken what they need. We have real conversations. I can focus on him without half my mind somewhere else." Her husband says, "I finally feel like I'm married to all of her." That is what recovery makes possible. That I finally feel like I'm married to all of her. Not just for the daughter, but for everyone who loves her, right? So, next episode is the last episode, and I'm going to talk about the permission to be selfish and the rewriting of the family script and what becoming a visible daughter actually looks like. And, I'm going to leave you with this question. Who in your life is getting all of you, and who's getting what's left over? Really sit with that one. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit author.bethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.